If you're in a startup, you know this feeling. It's this constant tug of war, right? You have to move fast, you have to ship, but you also need to build something that won't fall apart in 6 months. Getting that balance wrong, well, that can be the difference between success and a very costly failure. So let's dive into that. And this right here is the heart of the problem. In that early scramble to get an MVP out the door, it's just so easy to take technical shortcuts. We've all been there. You tell yourself, oh, we'll fix it later, but later has a nasty habit of showing up at the worst possible time, usually right when you're starting to get some real traction. So what's the real price you pay? That's what we're going to break down. This isn't just about having some messy code. It's about whether you're building a system that can actually support your business as it grows. We're going to look at the most common architectural mistakes, and more importantly, how you can steer clear of them. Okay, our first set of mistakes, they all fall under one big theme: building reactively. This is what happens when there's no real plan, no guiding principles. Every single decision is just made in the heat of the moment. You can really see the cause and effect here. You start with this kind of winding, reactive path on the left, and where does it lead? To that jumbled, expensive mess on the right. Every one of those small, unguided decisions piles on more and more technical debt. And then, when it's finally time to scale, you're stuck doing a massive, painful refactor instead of building cool new features. So, here's the first big one: no clear technical vision. Without a North Star to guide you, your architecture is just going to drift. Every new developer might bring in their favorite library or a cool new pattern they just learned, and hey, those might be great ideas in isolation, but put them all together without a plan, you get chaos. It's like trying to build a house with a dozen different architects who've never even spoken to each other. So how do you fix this? Well, the solution isn't some rigid top-down control. It's really all about alignment. A simple technical vision document, something that connects your tech choices to your business goals, is an absolute game changer. You establish a few of those North Stars, like deciding you're going to be API first, and suddenly everyone's pulling in the same direction. And using something called ADRs, well, that just creates a written history of why you made a choice, which is incredibly valuable down the line. Okay, this one is a classic. You hear about some cool new technology. You know the one, everyone's talking about it, and the temptation to use it is just huge. A startup might jump on Kubernetes, not because they have this massive, complex system to manage, but because it feels like what modern tech companies are supposed to do. But that comes with a very real cost in complexity and just day-to-day operational headaches. And that leads us right into our second mistake: choosing your tech based on hype, not on your actual situation. Things like your team's size, what they already know, and your current stage of growth, that's what should be driving your decisions. Grabbing the latest, shiniest thing when a simpler, managed solution would do the job, that's just adding unnecessary weight. So how do you avoid this trap? It's pretty simple, actually. First, think about the ROI. What's the real cost to maintain this thing? Does your team even know how to use it? And second, match your architecture to your stage. It's often totally smart to start an MVP with a simple monolith, one unified code base. You can always evolve to something more complex, like microservices, later on, but only when you actually need to. All right, let's move to our next section. We've been talking about the big picture vision. Now, let's zoom in and look at what happens when the individual pieces of your system don't have clear boundaries. This is where things can get messy fast. Oh man, this is a pain every developer has felt at some point. You make a tiny, perfectly logical change in the user service, and then all of a sudden, the billing service completely breaks in some way you never could have predicted. That's a classic sign that your services are way too tangled up, creating this fragile system where every single change feels like a huge risk. The technical term for this is blurred boundaries. It happens when services start sharing a database directly, or worse, one service reaches right into another one's internal logic. At that point, you're not building independent services anymore, you're building what's called a distributed monolith. And that gives you all the complexity of microservices with absolutely none of the benefits. It's the worst of both worlds. The solution here is all about enforcing separation, drawing clear lines in the sand. A practice called domain-driven design helps you define what are called bounded contexts, making each part of your system an expert on one specific thing and one thing only. Then you make sure services only talk to each other through well-defined API contracts. And a great pro tip here: actually visualizing your dependencies helps you spot dangerous connections before they turn into a real crisis. Now let's make a pretty fascinating shift. So far, we've focused almost entirely on code and technology. But what if I told you that some of the biggest architectural mistakes have absolutely nothing to do with code? They have everything to do with people. This is Conway's Law, and it's one of the most powerful truths in software development, for sure. It basically says that the design of your system will always inevitably mirror the communication structure of your organization. So if your teams are structured inefficiently, guess what? Your architecture is going to be inefficient too. Just look at this super common structure. You've got your front-end team, your back-end team, your DevOps team. To get a single feature out the door, you're juggling tickets, handoffs, and endless meetings between all three. It just creates bottlenecks and slows everything way, way down. And the architecture naturally starts to split along these technical layers, not along what the business actually needs. Now compare that with this model. Here, the teams are organized around business capabilities. The payments team has everyone they need, front-end, back-end, database, ops, to own their domain from end to end. This is what's known as applying Conway's Law in reverse. You structure your teams the way you want your architecture to look, and the system design just naturally follows. And the result? Way faster delivery and crystal clear ownership. So with all that in mind, what's the most dangerous number for your tech team? It's not 0. Nope. It's 1. This is what people call the bus factor. It's the risk your whole project faces if that one key person, the one who knows how everything really works, gets hit by a bus or, just wins the lottery and quits. When all that critical knowledge lives inside one person's head, your entire startup has a massive single point of failure. The goal here is to get all that crucial knowledge out of one person's head and into the system itself. Practices like pair programming and regular code reviews naturally spread understanding across the whole team. We mentioned ADRs before, and here they are again, a living record of your decisions. And automating your environments with infrastructure as code means that all that setup knowledge isn't trapped on one person's laptop. It's documented, it's repeatable, and it's for everyone. So, wow, we've covered a lot of ground, from high-level vision all the way down to team structures. Let's pull it all together and talk about what it really means to build a foundation that's strong and resilient. So here are the key takeaways. You can think of this as your cheat sheet for building a foundation that lasts. At the end of the day, it all comes down to being intentional. It's about having that clear vision, making deliberate tech choices, designing clear boundaries, structuring your teams for success, and getting rid of those single points of failure. And this is maybe the most crucial point to end on. Taking the time to establish these principles, that isn't slowing you down. It's the exact opposite. This is the real shortcut. A solid foundation is an accelerator. It lets you move faster and with way more confidence in the long run, because you're not constantly putting out fires caused by shortcuts you took months ago. So I'll leave you with this one question to really think about for your own projects. Are you building an architecture that's just good enough to launch, just good enough for that next demo day? Or are you building an engine that can actually power your company's growth for years to come? The answer to that question will probably define your future.